All right, visuals of Prime Minister Modi as he has just reached Japan. Prime Minister Modi is meeting Japanese Prime Minister Abe, and he will be attending the Indo-Japanese summit as well. Prime Minister Modi is on a two-day visit to Japan. This is a two-day summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and it's on a range of issues including defense and regional stability as well. We're getting you live visuals as Prime Minister meets with his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe. Prime Minister Modi has often spoken of India's strong diplomatic relations with Japan as well. This is the 13th India-Japan Annual Summit to review the progress in ties and deepen strategic partnership as well. Prime Minister Modi will begin his two-day summit. He is being greeted by the Japanese Prime Minister Abe himself. Now, we're getting reports that Prime Minister Modi has also been invited to Shinzo Abe's villa as well. Joining us on the phone line is Republic TV's executive editor Abhishek Kapoor. Abhishek, Prime Minister Modi being greeted by the Japanese Prime Minister Abe. Prime Minister Modi has also mentioned about partnership between India and Japan as well. And this is the 13th, if I'm correct, 13th India-Japanese summit, isn't it?
Well, yes, Shobit, these are those annual summits that take place between these two nations, and as has been of late, Prime Minister Modi has injected an element of informality which leads to better chemistry, better understanding between the two sides. We saw that Prime Minister doing in the case of China with Xi Jinping in Wuhan. We saw that Prime Minister doing it with President Putin in Sochi, and now, of course, Prime Minister has traveled to the hometown of Prime Minister Abe in Yamanashi, if I get it right. And there the two leaders would have one-on-one at the Mount Fuji Hotel in the backdrop of Mount Fuji. Then there would be a lunch session and then a restricted session between the two. And then the two would be visiting a local corporation. And then again a restricted session between the two leaders at the private villa of Prime Minister Abe. And then, of course, there is a train journey which the two would take from Yamanashi to Tokyo. One of those bullet trains are actually being made in India as well, or for India by Japanese, the bullet train between Ahmedabad and Mumbai. There is this string of cooperation measures that are in the pipeline. There are already existing projects, the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, the Delhi-Mumbai, the freight corridor, the Western Freight Corridor as it is called. Then Japan is investing a lot in infrastructure in the Northeast. It's a very durable, long-term relationship between the two nations, Shobit, and we are told that the discussions would also take place on the Quad, which includes, apart from Japan and India, Australia and the United States for the Indo-Pacific. So, also, I must add, Shobit, here that this visit is happening just 2 days after Prime Minister Abe has returned from China. That was one visit by Japanese Prime Minister in almost 13 or 11 years. And in that context, the triangulation that's going to take place between Japan, China, and India. Japan and India also cooperate in creating a development corridor in Asia and Africa, as almost as a counter to the Belt and Road Initiative of China. Right. So, a very important summit that is taking place between the two leaders.
Abhishek, if I can just ask you a quick question. Prime Minister was also greeted by the Indian diaspora in Japan when he reached there earlier. But this is Prime Minister Modi's third visit to Japan, and Russia and Japan are the only two countries that India has annual bilateral meets with. So, Prime Minister Modi, giving importance to relations with Japan and describing it as a winning combination. For our viewers, very quickly describe Japan's importance to India, both as far as defense partnership as well as strategic partnership is concerned.
Well, yes, absolutely. It's a strategic partnership because Japan happens to be best of friends of India in the Pacific region, Shobit, one. And two, there is this annual Malabar exercise that takes place, of which Japan is now part, and there is an element of defense cooperation there. There might not be much by way of defense equipment buying because Japan is not actually a defense manufacturer, major defense manufacturer. But the fact that there is a strategic element can be seen from the fact that discussions would take place on board, as I was mentioning, and the greater Asia-Africa corridor on which India and Japan are working together, Shobit. It's significant because it is seen as a balancing or a counter to the Belt and Road Initiative of China, which has given China a lot of access to as many as 50 nations in Asia, Europe, and Africa. So that's the strategic element of the relationship. And I must add here, Shobit, that there is a very strong chemistry between Prime Minister Abe and Prime Minister Modi. It goes back to the time when Prime Minister, as Chief Minister, had visited Japan as Gujarat Chief Minister, and when Abe was not Prime Minister, was in the opposition, and yet the two leaders had met. Hitting off a chemistry. When Prime Minister Abe visited India last time, Prime Minister Modi flew him down to Ahmedabad, to his home state, and was given a grand reception, of which Prime Minister Abe has actually mentioned that it was as grand as Prime Minister Nehru had given to Abe's grandfather. So there is an element of personal chemistry and, of course, the strategic dimension, as I mentioned.
Abhishek Kapoor getting us the latest as Prime Minister Modi was greeted by Japanese Prime Minister Abe as part of the two-day Indo-Japanese summit. Thank you, Abhishek, so much for joining us this morning with the big break news.